in polygamy, it's a few men monopolizing the reproductive market. But what's interesting about that is that even without polygamy, there still is a monopoly on the reproductive market based on women's biological choice of men.
Well, I mean, you have to remember, it's like women have a clock that they have, they have a time frame of which they can get pregnant. So women have always been encouraged to like marry off like a guy that has plenty of wealth and resources at an early age.
Yes,
Because
that's survival.
that's when they're most fertile, and that's when that's why it was common for a woman. That's why it's not uncommon for a young woman to be with an older man, because older men tend to have more finances and resources.
Yes, yeah. Well, there's the 80-20 rule, which
Yeah.
is a topic that goes around MGTOW circles a lot, and that's like how 20% of the men uh, are matched to 80% of the women. So I've even heard, like, if you go back genetically, is that it's like a 20%, it's like a 20-80 split, where that's the percentage of men that were able to reproduce and continue their line. That's a lot of genetic dead ends for men.
Well, yeah, and you also have to remember is that like the women benefit tremendously from like, because here's the thing, while most women would like to be in a monogamous relationship, they're more than happy to settle for being the third or fourth wife of a rich man.
Yes, I
Well, to be fair, hell, I would settle for being the third or fourth husband of a rich woman.
well, there you go. And the thing is the I was just gonna share kind of a bit of a story of my own, is that the reason I became a Muslim is because I married a Muslim woman, and her aunt was the third of four wives, right? So I've seen
Yeah.
that. I've seen polygamy up close, and God, I felt sorry for that guy, man.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, they like to see it. They like to see it as one man with, they like to think about it as like the man benefits so much. I said, like, well, he has four wives. That means he has four times the sex. I'm saying he also got four times the nagging.
Yeah, he's got four times the headache for
yep,
sure.
Yeah, I
yep.
said now he has four different women telling him to take out the trash.
Yeah. Well, and on the topic of polygamy, polygamy has been a normal practice in many different cultures all over the world.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
what's so funny is that whenever you have polygamy, it's a requirement by necessity to have a large military.
mm,
All
yeah, yeah,
polygamous societies end up having a large military.
right.
You know why?
Why is that?
Because if you take away like the women from a lot of these guys, they become violent.
Yeah, they need an release.
Yeah, so that's so if they're not going to war, they're going to be messing up shit in their own town. So what they just do is like the government just utilizes them as a military force.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Um, I suppose if it was an ingrained part of the culture, then that would follow. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not well versed on how polygamy uh, has been treated in all these other. I know that it has been popular in many different cultures throughout history, throughout the world. I'm sure there's always different reasoning behind it. There's always the biological facts behind it. I mean, for example, the reason why do you think there hasn't been well, you got to remember it's polygyny is the proper term, more than one wife, and polyandry is more than one husband. And the cultures that practice polygyny are there's many in history, but polyandry is very rare. And the reason is basically biological. If you practice polyandry, nobody knows who the fucking father is of a kid.
Yeah.
It causes a lot of chaos, and it's not healthy for a society. So the
Well, yeah,
biological reasoning is there as well as why it's been popular. But I'm not.
it
But
makes a
besides,
parent a nightmare.
yes, yeah. There's because maternity is guaranteed. Paternity never is. Never, never, never.
Well, that and it's also a risk of an STDs, I imagine.
Possibly, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you're a third husband to a woman, that means you're sharing your woman with two other men,
Hmm.
and like you don't think that that's going to somehow encourage men to be more sexualized with other men since they're all
Possible.
since they're already being cucked.
True. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that could be a possibility, man, for sure.
That I'm pretty sure that's a category on Pornhub, if I'm not mistaken.
You have to remember, you know who was the ultimate cuck?
Huh.
Joseph.
Who's that?
Joseph in the Bible.
Oh yeah, right. Because
Straight to hell you go.
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing on the topic of cuck for quickly. Again, going back to how I labeled myself a misogynist because it doesn't have a meaning anymore. It's just a pejorative. The same thing has happened to the word cuck, where it's not. It's lost its original meaning. So now it's just kind of defined as if you're not talking in pornographic terms, it's defined as as a sort of a weak male who sort of submits to a woman to a certain degree. Whereas a true cuck is the definition of the actual true etymological definition of the word cuck or cuckolding means a man who is raising a child that's not his own, but he thinks it's his own. Basically, a cuck is the victim of paternity fraud.
A victim of feminism.
Or feminism, yeah. Well, you don't need feminism for paternity fraud to exist.
That's true.
Although it definitely encourages it.
It helps.
It definitely
Yeah.
helps, yeah.
Right.
But so I don't think we could technically, by the definition, call Joseph a cuck
Well,
because he
still-
knew it wasn't his kid.
he's still waiting for that child support check. He said, "I raised you, and I also raised your son, who's also you."
Yeah,
Who is also you.
yeah.
Trinitarians just got triggered.
Yeah, that's crazy shit.
The concept of the Trinity, man, is
Yeah, it's some crazy mental gymnastics that
yes.
rivals feminism in its mental gymnastics.
You heard it's like Richard Dawkins' new book, where he's actually trying to indoctrinate kids into atheism.
Oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and
You know how, he seriously made the argument that the twinning process, where one organism becomes two. He seriously said, "Well, which one's the person?" Making an argument for abortion. I'm like, they're
this
both-
guy's a biologist. Wow.
Well, I mean, I always said funny. It's like he's saying, "Well, can you believe that one organism can become two people?" And I'm like, you do realize you're mostly talking to Christians who believe one God can be three persons.
Oh shit.
Well, going back to
Divine schizophrenia. All right, I'm done. Go ahead.
well, going back to cucks and cucks and polygamy. Again, like I said, according to the real definition of the word, Joseph is not a cuck. He is if you want to use it as a pejorative, because then I guess he is. But
The victim of fraternity fraud.
but he's a victim. He was not a victim of paternity fraud because he knew it wasn't his kid.
Well, yeah. Well, I
So
mean, he's still waiting for the child support check, though.
yeah, yeah. but because in the case of a cuck, it's when the man doesn't know it's his kid. He's raising a kid that's not his own, right? That's paternity fraud. Where, I mean, I guess paternity fraud still exists after you find out, but then after you find out, you can kind of you're not a cuck anymore. Now you can walk away from that shit and realize this isn't
To
mine.
go to court for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
really, he's sort of screwed because what is he going to do? Take God to court?
yes, exactly. Yeah, he's pretty.
During the White Throne Judgment, he's going to put God on the hot seat.
Well, what's funny, it's like, because, I mean, it's ultimately going to be funny because he has to put God in there, but he also has to put Jesus up there as well. So he has to defend. He has to both defend the fact that he's raising God while also making the case that God is abandoned, has left him with himself.
Right.
Oh shit!
Well,
It's the most confusing case of child support I would ever have recognized.
well, in the vein of that though, and kind of tying it into we were talking about polygamy, in Islam, well, okay, not I don't know about brand Islam. Brand Islam is all sorts of nuts. But if you go by what the Quran says about polygamy, the entire concept of it, as it's mentioned there, is mentioned in the sense that if women are widowed, because a lot of women, obviously, back in those days, lost husbands, because men had to work. Work was rough. Men fought in wars, etc. There's a lot of widows with kids. So the whole concept of polygamy in the Quran was, look, if there's women within your communities that are without husbands and have to feed and take care of kids, marry them as a second wife.
Yeah, because then you could support them.
Exactly. Yes. Then you could support that woman and her kids. So again, though, that's not defined as a cuck because you know that it's not your kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, they said, in the Quran it says for both widows and for orphans.
No. It says marry the widows. What does it say again? Marry the widows. Yes, marry the widows of orphans. There's no mention of marrying orphans. Okay,
Well,
that's brand Islam. That's not in the Quran.
well, I mean, I also said, when it comes to Islam, I've never really bought the whole Aisha was 9 thing because that would really go against the culture of the day.
Yeah, look, that stuff again. That's brand Islam shit. They can't even make up their mind.
They're like in Muhammad's culture, the age would have been 12.
Well, not only that, but her age is never mentioned in the Quran.
Well, yeah, true.
So it's all speculation.
You have to go to the Sahih Bukhari.
Well, Bukhari was a Jewish convert who wrote that shit down 250 years after Muhammad died. So,
oh yeah,
whatever. Go ahead.
The earliest record we have of Muhammad is like 100 years after his death.
Yeah. So I mean, like but again, that whole issue of polygamy, it depends on the culture. Like in the Quranic culture, I'll call it Quranic culture because it's not necessary. Although the Quran was received in Saudi Arabia, so that most of those verses were revealed after the people that were around Muhammad asked him. They said, "Hey, what about marriage?" And then God would say, "Okay, Muhammad, say this to them," right? So it was basically in answer to their questions, and that was the answer. If there's women that don't have husbands, their husbands have died, and they're trying to raise kids, go ahead and marry them. Have a second wife if you want. But I guarantee you, back then, most of the men were like, no thanks. I think I'll pass.
Well, yeah,
I think I'll go the MGTOW route. Thanks anyways, Muhammad. But
Yeah.
Be upon-
Thanks, anyways, Muhammad. But old, Betty over there with her 3 kids. I'm already
Three
stretched.
kids and her saggy tits.
You have to remember, whenever you say Muhammad, you have to say peace be upon him.
Peace be. No, that's what the brand Muslims do.
Or people.
The brand Muslims are fucking insane.
Shit! How dare you?
Well, that's
How
you know that's
dare you?
that's what I find most fascinating too about it. My own history of kind of becoming Muslim, learning about it, studying it, and where I am today. I swear to God, man, some of the things I say about Islam, if I said them to brand Muslims' faces, I might die.
Probably. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Know what's hard to make a business in Saudi Arabia with?
What's that?
Hats.
Hats?
Yeah, it's hard to sell hats when everyone's getting their head cut off.
Oh, right.
Although the sell on
Yeah,
machete
not much.
pay up.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to get a market going for headpieces in that region. I'm sure you'd make a killing on machetes.
Well, yeah. It's a
Or
big
saws.
Have you ever seen those?
Chainsaws.
Have you ever seen those videos of beheadings?
I seen one
Yeah, they're
on
pretty.
the dark web.
They're fascinating. Just a giant fucking sword,
Yeah.
The guy
And they-
comes down on the neck. It's crazy, man.
And right before he does it, he's like, I don't know, he says some Quranic verse.
Bismillah.
Bismillah.
No,
And then
he would say Bismillah in the name of God.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, no,
brand Islam is fucking insanity.
It is.
Well,
It's
you know what I
absolutely
always
insane.
said? I've always said if I was kidnapped by a Muslim terrorist, you know what I would say?
Hmm.
I would tell him, Allah Akila.
Allah Akila.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
What's that mean?
fuck Allah.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I didn't
well,
know that. Well, yeah.
That's-
I suppose if you think you're going to die anyway. Why not? Yeah.
No, you gotta say. I don't know, man. You'd have to pull something like shit. What was the joke we were cracking a couple of weeks ago? Oh yeah, like Muhammad said. No, Allah said to Muhammad, and then you have to have the music playing in the background, and then you gotta like, blah, 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 and then peace be upon none of you. That's when you lob the head off.
Yeah.
Isn't it bad that whenever I hear a Muslim say Allah Akbar, I always think that the next thing that's going to come out is boom.
Yes, an explosion. Which I find that little piece of media propaganda always fascinated me because even a brand Muslim, okay, because there are things that carry over from the Quran that still exist in brand Islam. There's some, and even a brand Muslim who was going to kill himself would never shout Allahu Akbar before he killed himself. Never. He would shout La ilaha illallah. And that's so ingrained, even in brand Islam. They would never shout Allahu Akbar. And so I always found that little piece of media propaganda fascinating. They got it wrong. Like they chose
What's
the
the
wrong
other thing mean?
phrase. What La ilaha illallah? It means there's no God but the one God.
Right.
And that's so ingrained in Muslim culture. Even the brand Muslims, before they die, that's what they will say. Very, very. That's a very powerful statement for them. They would never shout Allahu Akbar. It's ridiculous.
I remember I did a response video a while back to a guy named, he's a ex-Muslim named Armin Nababi,
Okay.
and he's an ex-brand Muslim, you could say.
Of course.
What I find funny is that, he tried to kill himself by throwing himself out of a window so he could get into heaven. And I was, you're such a bad Muslim that you didn't that you're supposed to fly into buildings, not jump out of them.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Didn't he read the damn hadiths? I mean, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
It all goes back. It all ties back to feminism and how they're just really co-opting. They're co-opting religion where it's convenient for them.
But they don't like Catholics or Christians, that's for sure.
Well, except they like Catholics when they're encouraging pedophilia.
Of course.
And then they're all for Catholics.
Yeah, I guess you're right there.
Like I said, they pick and choose which parts of religion they like.
Yeah. Well, and also
just like they pick and choose parts of men that they like, right? They like the wallets, the bank accounts.
yes.
They like the.
Yeah.
That's basically it. That's basically all it is. The wallets and the bank accounts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything else is just.
They just do
fluff.
it as a chore. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything else is fluff. It's just it's there. If it's there, But as long as the wallet, the bank account is there, then
one culture where men are apparently so empowered that if you're a 14-year-old boy that's raped by a woman, you'll have to pay child support if the woman that raped you got pregnant.
yes.
Wow.
Oh, I know. I mean,
That's ace.
yeah. Well, and that's again. These are now what we're getting into again is we're going back to these are men's rights activist talking points. Basically, trying to destroy the myth of male power, and trying to get a big focus of men's rights. If your listeners are unaware, another big focus, and this is one that this is a battle that I'm not a part of, but I think it's very noble. It's kind of going religious, David and Goliath, but it's within the men's rights movement. I have a lot of respect for the men in there that are doing this David and Goliath battle against the family court system, which is a goddamn nightmare for men.
Yep.
It's killing men. It's literally killing men and children. Literally. Yep. Killing men and children. And that's a big part of the men's rights movement, if your listeners didn't know that. But they do try to be active, and
that's by design. They want men to do that because then they can use that violence in order to justify disarming the population.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, there are men and men's rights activists that activate and try to do things to change society's perspective on men, but also change the legal system. And that's why I call it David and Goliath. I'm like, good luck. Good luck with that.
Yes.
Like 58% of women hold 58% of bachelor degrees and 61% of master's degrees.
Well, yeah, but even outside of education, going into the family court system, I mean, where do you start? Like, where do you start with the corruption and the disadvantage men have in that? So we can list them off.
It's so disproportionate, and it's weaponized against men.
Yes.
Just look at the divorce settlements and child visitation rights. Men get
Custody.
The shit end of that stick every single time. Single time.
Here's the thing: men kill themselves at a rate 4 times that of women, and the majority of those suicides are, I think, it's between the ages of 35 and 45.
Even though attempt at more.
Yes. What?
Well, women attempt suicide more, but men actually carry it out.
That's what they say, but how do you collect statistics for attempted suicide?
Baker actions, really. Like someone they would consider like someone that like maybe tries to cut their wrist but survives.
Yeah, but is that an attempted suicide? Is it really? See, that's what I mean. That like women don't attempt suicide more. They just try to get
Oh, it could just
attention
be an
more.
attention.
She said,
Attention, yeah.
You can't
well,
measure that. That's immeasurable. You cannot measure unless you talk to the woman and take her word for it. Were you really trying to kill yourself? She
well,
said yes.
know what I always say? I say, yeah, women attempt it more, but men carry it out. So, other words, when it comes to suicide, men are better at it.
Well, sure, sure,
Oh, jeez.
sure.
And there's so much about equality. To be truly equal, women, you're going to have to pull your own weight and start taking your
Killing.
own lives at a much
Yeah.
more efficient rate.
Yes, yes. I've heard that before too. But seriously, like I know that's a joke, but the women attempting it more has become sort of a meme as far as popular culture saying that, oh yeah, well, women are really always trying to kill themselves. No, they're not. It's bullshit. They're not attempting to kill themselves more. Um, but on what I was saying before, so men are killing themselves at a rate 4 times greater than women. The statistics generally are 30. The highest rate is between the ages of 35 and 45, and the majority of those men are going through divorce and custody battles. Okay, so what's happening is the family court system, the way it's set up, is literally killing men. Men are taking their lives, and if all of those men who, out of despair, complete and utter defeat and despair, that are killing themselves, if men were really so violent and they focused that violence not on themselves but on other people, we'd see a lot more mass shootings and women being murdered than we actually are.
Well,
But that just
it's
isn't
just
the
like,
case.
well, I mean, you have to
Yes.
remember this. I mean, apparently,
They're trying. They're driving men.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you have to remember this. Like, apparently, men are so privileged and powered that whenever an army is running into a town to kill people, they always kill all the men first, but leave the women alive. Typically,
Oh yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. The
that's in the Bible. They say that where they kill the men, but they leave to take the women and children with them.
Unless it's the Jewish Old Testament where all the Hebrews are like, kill everyone, kill them all. But
uh,
the tiny hats of the Bible were savage, man.
yeah, and they've become
Well,
even more savage these days.
you have to remember.
Technology has helped them be more efficient at it.
Well, you just have to remember, man, that they just really cared about the overpopulation issue.
Yeah. God commanded them to be environmentalists. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yes.
there's some horrible stories of the Hebrews in the Old Testament. Just
Mhm.
fucking kill the women and children, kill them all. Oh
Well, you have to
Christ.
remember, man, you took away my childhood. How dare you?
Yeah. So
I,
Dash their kids against the rocks. Yeah,
I
that's
didn't,
some good
I didn't,
reading right there.
I didn't take away your childhood. Time already did that.
yeah. Well, this is the fascinating thing is that if they're trying to incite, as you said, they're trying to incite men to violence through despair, because that's what this is creating in men. These family court situations. They're taking away their kids, um, their families, their livelihood, even imprisoning men. So if they are trying to incite men to violence through this despair, it's not working, because they're not. The majority of men aren't resorting to violence. They're resorting to taking their own lives. That's what's actually happening, and they'll settle for that
Yes.
too. You know,
Oh
they'll
yeah.
settle for that too.
Men generally suffer from mental illnesses and emotional problems more than women anyway.
Yes.
By and large, look at their compare the two lifestyles. Um, one's more
You
hectic than the other, and the men are generally putting themselves at risk more, much
Yes.
more than
and
women in the workplace and otherwise.
And you also have to remember, men get sexually assaulted just as much as women.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
just
And,
don't as much.
and physically assaulted.
Yep.
Well, I mean, if you do the overall statistics of violent crime, men are the lion's share of the victims of violent crime. Murder victims, violent crime, men are much more likely to be victims of violent crime. Not women.
A lot of them by their own spouses.
Yeah. Well, that's if you get into domestic violence. It's domestic violence is I mean, okay, one of the most prominent men's rights activists today is Erin Pizzey, a woman who, as we all know, ran the first women's shelter in London, or I think it was London. Was it London? I think so. And back in the 60s or 70s, and basically she came to the conclusion that violent people are violent. There was no gender to domestic violence, and boy, did that cost her.
Oof. Yeah, that's a pretty controversial thing to say in the feminist light. But fuck them. Men by and large are more prone to be victims of violence, whether that's by other men or by women.
Yep.
And when it's by women, most of the time, especially when it's sexual assault, they don't tell anybody. They hesitate to, because the way that feminism has society sculpted these days is, if you're a man and you're sexually assaulted by a woman, and you're bitching about it, one, you're gay, right? Like why didn't you like it? Or two, you're a little bitch.
Yeah, you're shamed.
And that brings a great deal of embarrassment and shame, and so most men keep their mouths shut about it, and just kind of deal with it. It's sick.
And it's the opposite for women. Most women lie about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, most men that actually like a huge portion of men that do get sexually assaulted, it tends to be by their mothers.
Yes, that happens a lot.
Yeah, family members. Yeah,
especially in Alabama.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I mean, so men are when men are sexually assaulted, they are shamed to silence, and then the opposite end of the spectrum is the modern woman, who is not sexually assaulted, but then lies and says she was.
Yep. How many great men's lives have been ruined because of one false accusation? Because a woman, things weren't working out in the relationship for whatever reason. So she goes, you know what? I'm going to lie, and I'm going to say that he raped me or he hit me or something. And she's believed by default by her peers and by the courts because she's a woman.
Yes.
No such thing as evidence anymore.
No. Here you have to believe a single woman's testimony, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
But in the Quran, it says a woman's witness, you need two women to equal one man's witness.
I'm 100% in support of that.
I know, man. That's why the feminists will never be able to marry their concepts with Islam. Possibly.
That's why Brand Islam isn't going anywhere with what should I call it? I don't know. Should I call it like Orthodox Islam or?
Sure, if you want. I mean, I didn't coin the word brand Islam. It was Sam Garens that did, and I just kind of liked it. I used to call it Islamism or Muhammadism.
Muhammadism, yeah.
Yeah, those were my terms, and then I heard Sam Garens call it brand Islam. I thought, that makes sense. It's become a brand.
Yeah. And it wouldn't last a day in, like you said, Muslim majority countries like Saudi Arabia.
Feminism wouldn't fly.
Not at all.
But but the thing is the two women witness to one man. That doesn't come from brand Islam. That's straight out of the Quran.
Yeah.
That's straight out of the Quran, man. That's right out of God's mouth.
Well, there you go. I don't know what more proof people need for divine inspiration than that. If you haven't been cooked by feminism, then I'm pretty sure that makes sense to you.
Man.
Man, yeah, yeah, man. I mean, I told a story on I Am Stream a couple of weeks ago about a psychotic ex of mine who almost had me sitting in a prison cell today if she didn't decide to drop the false charges against me.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
nasty story, man.
yeah, yeah. I sympathize so much with the MGTOW movement. I really do. Especially after that, I have been very paranoid and very hesitant to seek out a relationship with a woman ever since then. Because, yeah, dude, one word, just one false charge and your life is ruined. And it's fucking insane. Men get fucked over left and right in our
Well,
society.
you just have to do what I do.
What do you
I,
do?
I just say I'm a sodomite.
Jeez.
Or I say I'm trans.
Right. And then don't the women like those people though? Don't the feminists?
Yeah, they really like those the very feminine men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just say that
I
I believe.
suppose they wouldn't accuse you of something though.
I say, well, I say I believe I'm a woman, so therefore it's true.
Do you know what I just thought is I wonder if there because I doubt this is something that would be reported or or tracked, but I wonder how many homosexual men or sodomites have been accused of falsely accused of sexually abusing a woman.
That's an interesting one. Are there any statistics on
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it must happen, man. It must.
It's gotta. Yeah.
I wonder if it's an occurrence that happens enough that it could kind of be measured. Interesting.
Wonder if there's any trans men who have been accused of that. That would be hilarious. So hold on. If a trans man raped a woman, is it lesbian sex at that point, or?
Well, first of all, what is a trans man? Is that a woman to a man or a man to a woman?
Yeah, man to a woman.
A trans man is a man to a woman.
No, a trans man is a man.
Is a woman to a man.
Transitioning into a man.
Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah, I had it backwards. Yeah.
And then the trans woman would be a man transitioning into a woman. So basically, complete fucking retarded morons.
Yes.
Okay, I get it.
Well, I mean,
Right.
I always find it funny because they say it like this. Well, I believe I'm a woman, therefore I am a woman. I'm like, I believe I'm a millionaire, therefore I am a millionaire.
Yes.
Yeah. If they're gonna be fair.
Yeah. Well, and they say, but I don't like the way my body is. I said, no shit, neither do I. I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but just because I don't like my body doesn't mean I want to alter it.
Right.
Rock that dad bod, man. These hoes ain't loyal. Yeah. Men's rights. You almost got to ask yourself sometimes: do they exist? Even do they exist? And by and large, no. It doesn't seem like they do.
Well, men's rights don't exist anymore because we gave women rights.
Yes.
We shouldn't have given them any what were we thinking?
I know, man. Like that's what I said at the beginning of the stream. Like it's it's not like you said. It's not one wave, two wave. No, it's all one wave, and it's wreaked havoc on society ever since. I'm against all of it.
Tasami.
What's that?
It's not a wave, it's a tasami.
Oh, right. A tsunami. A tsunami. Tasami is a Chinese dish with fried duck and
Oh,
eggs.
sorry, that's my natural German accent.
Shit.
No, but you're right. Like there was the beginning of the end was the suffragettes.
Yes. Yep.
Women getting the right to vote.
Yeah, that was the
Oh
beginning of the
God,
end.
yeah. Because you know what, and this is true. It's just true. Women, the majority of them, think emotionally, purely emotionally.
Mhm.
Okay, they do not. Most men are rational and logical thinkers, and that's them apart in terms of their psychology. And I don't know about anyone else, but I don't want someone voting on public policy based on some fleeting emotion they have. Uh,
Well, if you
Well,
if you go,
I always say this way. I always say it this way. We, it's been 100 years now since we gave women the right to vote, and I said, oh yeah, I basically said, we included women in the meaningless system of, forced choices that is elections.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
So,
this is
you know, I've always said this, like people say that prayer doesn't do anything. I say voting does less than prayer.
well. This is the thing is
I always compared the two. I say, what what is the difference between prayer and voting? One is a meaningless act that does nothing, that is basically saying that I want basically an all-powerful being to grant my wishes and to oppress the non-believers. The other is praying.
yeah, absolutely. Well, here's the thing, man. Okay, well, I don't want to get too much into the meaning of democracy, but it does have the modern day democracy, but it does have to do with going back to the suffragettes and the in the realms of just the concept of democracy and the idea of it, which is basically mob rule, uh,
yes,
can work on a certain level, but it can't when it's been so inundated and watered down. Okay, you have to remember go back to the concept of the suffragettes and the beginning or the end of the 19th century, and focusing on just America at the time, the United States of America. Back then, uh, the concept of democracy was a lot stronger because the voting class and the voting I guess I'll just say the voting class wasn't diluted. So if you wanted to vote in an election, you had to have a dog in the fight. Okay, that's basically it. If you don't have a dog in the fight, then you're not voting. So what it came down to was land ownership. All right, back in those days, uh, if you wanted the right to vote, you had to own land. And land ownership was a different thing back then than it is today. So we can't
yes,
really make that comparison. But back then, if you if you own land, then you could vote. Women could vote back then if they owned land, but most women did not. There was a very, 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 very small, tiny minority of women that actually owned land that was owned by them in their name, property in their name.
Well, technically, no one owns the land. God owns the land. We just happen to rent it.
Sure, if you want to put it that way. But nowadays, uh, the god that owns the land is the state. But that's besides the point. So, in accordance to whatever laws were in existence back then, if you owned land, then you got to vote. So a lot of men couldn't vote, and of course you had you had to be a certain age as well. And that was because if you own land, then you had a dog in the fight. All right, you had some real there was real weight behind your vote because it meant something more to you because the result would affect you a lot more than someone that didn't. All right, so then they obviously when they wanted men to become disposable and go fight fucking wars, then they said, okay, you can vote now if you go and risk death. All right,
yep,
then so the whole concept of voting had nothing to fucking do with gender at all, nothing. Nothing to do with it. When the suffragette movement happened, a lot of women were against it. And of course, we all know what tribe was behind the suffragette movement.
Jews.
Yeah. But so at that point, this concept that women need to be liberated, which means subjugated, and given the right to vote, it completely diluted and destroyed the concept, the very weak concept of democracy in the first place. It destroyed it. Because at that time, most land was owned by men, and men had families, and men's vote represented their family. It represented their wives and their children. That household that had that land, that was owned by that man, that's what the vote represented. Today, because starting with the suffragette movement, which people like to call the first wave of feminism, that was the beginning of the end. As soon as we gendered the vote, and under the guise of liberation, subjugated women by giving them the vote, that was the beginning of the end. So
Yep.
And good luck turning the clock back on that one.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
You can if you move to a Muslim country. If you move to Saudi Arabia, you can do that. 100% turn back the clock. All of a sudden, you're in a land where women can't vote anymore. So that's basically your only choice.
Essentially, yeah. Christianity can't do that.
No.
Catholicism can't do that. I've seen so many women preachers in churches, which is
lesbian preachers now.
Lesbian, yes, and all the. I mean, just in my area where I live, I'm thinking of 3 churches right now that fly the LGBT flag outside of their establishment.
It's
in
done.
Canada, they have an atheist priest.
What's that?
In Canada, they have like an atheist priest.
Really?
Do they?
Yes.
So
in the name of nothing.
Yeah, that's so funny. An atheist priest, eh? Yeah, it's a joke now. I mean, the church representation in the United States is a joke now. In the Western world, it's a joke.
Oh yeah.
To be fair, to say that it's become a joke implies that at one point in time it wasn't.
What, the church, or the church, the Catholic Church? I mean, what degree of it are you talking about?
Well, I mean, in America, it's pretty much like, at least early on, the entire concept of the church really was just to propagate Protestantism.
Yeah, there's truth to that, definitely. You know, I'm.
Let's think about it this way: in the entire history of the United States, we've only had one Catholic president.
Yeah.
He got killed.
Well, that's interesting because right around that time, Catholicism was threatening to become the majority voting bloc in the United States. That's and so E. Jones writes about it too. It was on the verge. It looked like it was going to become the majority voting bloc in the United States. Whoa! Did the tiny hats put a stop to that fast? Real fast.
Yes.
Enter the 1960s and the so-called second wave of feminism, and boom, there goes the Catholic voting bloc. Gone. Done.
Yep.
Erased in less than a generation. It's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, we're gonna have to make a part 2
Okay.
to this stream. We'll keep going. Obviously, we can continue the conversation, but because my phone can't, for whatever reason, download recorded calls that go past. I think it's like 2 hours. And we're about to cap that, so I have to cut this off here, and then we'll literally pick it up again in like 2 minutes. So I'll just.
Well, here, actually, man, I should actually go because it's 9:30, and I got a lot of work to do tomorrow too.
Okay.
So, me
yeah.
too.
So let's do a part 2 another day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, awesome. Thanks, guys, for coming on, for taking the time to come discuss these topics, and shedding some light on them, and hopefully waking some people up to the truth about feminism and men's rights. Um, drilling that into their heads. And well, you guys both have channels, so you guys can shamelessly plug away. I'll start with you.
Yeah, I am serious. It's AYAM, Sirius, SIRIAS. It's that's my channel. You can go there. I just do weekly live streams. I don't do regular content anymore, but I just do the weekly live streams. So I think I'm going to be doing one tomorrow. I am doing one tomorrow with Lamprey and a guest. I think so. Go if you want. Go check it out tomorrow night. There'll be a stream.
Awesome, awesome. I am serious, ladies and gentlemen. The not brand Muslim, who is also Mossad, who is also MGTOW. Go check him out. I'll link your channel in the description. Derek, Mr. Brass, you can plug if you want to.
Yes, well, this is all for today. This is Mr. Brass saying goodbye and get wise. And check out my channel. It's like Mr. Brass is just the channel's name. I do videos on all topics really, but I prefer to do topics on matters of history and basically just pro-religion stuff. If you want to if you just want to sum it up, that's it.
All right.
Awesome. Great. I'll link your channel as well. Well, thanks for coming on, guys.
right.
And thanks to our listeners and those who will listen in the future.
Okay.
And as always, this is the Analytic Alchemist signing out. Have a beautiful and blessed day wherever you are in this crazy, topsy-turvy world of ours. Peace.
All right.